I'm not sure when I'm ever going to get used to the fact that Ascension Thursday is no longer on Thursday. I try to remind myself that, unlike when I was a kid, it's okay to eat meat tomorrow. Today's gospel, today's solemnity, it's important to remember that Jesus commissioned his disciples, his missionary disciples, to baptize in his name, and reminding them that he is always present in them. When I was growing up in New Jersey, I remember sitting in on many extended family conversations about the world around us. My Uncle Charlie was a corporate tax lawyer in New York City. My dad was a middle-class guy who went to work every day at a printing company. Uncle Charlie's position always seemed to be that a position or an action was perfectly legal. My dad's retort was always, "Sure, Charlie, maybe it's legal, but is it moral? Is it ethical?" In hindsight, I think those discussions did more to form me as a person than I realized at the time. Because I know that our lives are always governed by two laws. There's the civil law, then there's the moral law. Sometimes they're in harmony, sometimes not. And when that happens, we are required to follow that higher moral law. In doing that, we have to prepare for the consequences, accept the civil consequences, no matter what they may be. Jesus, throughout his ministry, spoke of two laws: that of the law and the prophets, and his own. They are not in conflict with one another, but they are, in fact, very different from one another. Jesus says that he has not come to destroy the law and the prophets, but to fulfill that law and to perfect it. The law and the prophets is basically the 10 Commandments. We all know them. Don't do this, don't do that. They functioned in a way as a scriptural penal code. You see, the 10 Commandments are all about righteousness, about standing right with God and with our neighbor. The first 3 commandments deal with our relationship with God. The next 7 commandments deal with our relationship with others, with our neighbor. The old law commanded that we must worship God, and people did. But following the life and words and actions of Jesus, we learn in a very specific and unambiguous way that the more perfect way to worship God is with a full heart and daily dedication to the gospel values of faith, hope, justice, and love. Worship is not intended to be robotic. You see, the old law said that people must give strict justice to the neighbor, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But Jesus showed us how to perfect that justice in a way that really wasn't checking boxes, but instead overflowed with compassion and mercy. The old law said that you had to forgive your neighbor once. Those who really excelled in the old law forgave their neighbor 3 times. Peter, thinking that he was the poster child for mercy, suggested 7 times. Jesus' more perfect way demands 70 times 7 times. In other words, the followers of Jesus forgives as often as the offending neighbor is genuinely sorry. There is no statute of limitations on forgiveness. How many of us can actually admit to following that model? So Jesus, in fact, calls us to an excellence in moral and ethical life that reaches beyond the letter of the law and the commandments. He accentuates the positive. Blessed are the poor in spirit, those who mourn, the meek, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers, those who are persecuted because of righteousness. Because to walk with Jesus is to experience not just the pieces of life you can be content with. It means having the courage and the commitment that no matter what comes along, we'll be driven not by rules and regulations, not by commandments, but letting Jesus carry us through life. And carrying us through life with our faith and love in Him, we can change the world. As we leave this afternoon, let's focus on our call to excellence in our moral life that reaches beyond the letter of the law and commandments. You know, let's carry ourselves through life with our faith and love in Jesus. As we embrace our missionary discipleship, let's live our lives in the context of the gospel message. And let's live it with a wide, generous, and always forgiving heart. As Christians, checking boxes is out. It's not following Uncle Charlie's guideline of, is it legal? But rather, it's embracing moral, ethical, and Christ-like living. They will know we are Christians by our love.